if someone asked me what my dream job was, I'd be like to be a mom and have kids, like and to be a wife. Like I didn't even care necessarily about my career. I didn't think that that was going to be something that was so important and valuable to me. When I had my first W-2 job and I was like, I'm not using my brain. I feel so bored and dead inside. And I was like, I need to do something that I'm challenged. I need to do something where I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm in an environment that's exciting to me every day.
Get ready for the next iteration of you on your path to becoming wealthy. On this show, you'll get the insider's view on wealth creation, the class none of us got taught in school, with my co-host, daughter, and beginning investor, Sophia Bosch. And now, let's get started. Welcome to the Becoming Wealthy podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Bosch. I'm here with my co-host,
Sophia Bosch.
And what do we have today, Sophia? What's going on? Do we have a guest?
Yes.
Yes, we do have a guest. We are super excited to have with us today an amazing woman. She was named one of the top 5 disruptive entrepreneurs going into 2023. She's been featured on Bigger Pockets. She's a 2 times best-selling author. She's an expert in assisted living. She's also the host of the podcast, Young Boss Podcast. And with that, I would love to welcome to the show, Isabelle Guarino. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, ladies.
Did I pronounce this properly?
Perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad I did.
Yeah.
Isabel, thank you so much for being here with us. As I was, explaining to you a little bit before we, hit record here. Sophia is a budding real estate investor, and she's learning the ropes. I'm trying to expose her to as many amazing women in real estate or just entrepreneurs in general.
Yeah.
For her to get a real sense of, the entrepreneurial journey and all things, real estate investing. And so with that, I'll have her kick us off, with the first question.
Yeah, okay. So you mentioned assisted living. So did you specifically get started in that?
What happened was my grandmother, she fell and broke her hip and she needed assisted living. And so we kind of got thrown into it. My dad had been a real estate investor for 30 plus years. So very similar to you, growing up with parents who are in real estate, but I had no interest in it. And I wanted to go do my own thing. My grandmother fell. My dad said, wait. We're going to be paying $5,000 a month for her to live in an assisted living home, or we could own our own and we could be cash flowing and she could live for free. So we got in with the intent to move my grandmother into our own. And she passed before we could move her in, but we kind of fell in love with the industry. And it was the first thing that I saw my dad do that I was like, oh, I'm actually kind of interested in this. I want to learn more. So I started kind of soaking up more information from him and really learning along the way, and took over his businesses as he passed a couple years ago. And so it's been a whole lot of fun, but it's one of those things that kind of just naturally happen because of our own family's needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And I figured that there was possibly some kind of like a personal connection, because it's an asset class that, yes, I know about the opportunity, about how America is aging, and boomers are retiring, and this is the biggest influx basically of people that will be requiring, services, and for which this, asset class has been always touted. But I figured that there was probably a personal connection, and now I can totally, understand. And Sophia is growing up also here in a very, real estate entrepreneurial family as well. And I always wondered, I have seen the numbers, but I always wonder, what does it really take to run a successful operation, Isabel?
Yeah, so what we do is not like the big commercial units, right? We take residential homes and use them for senior housing. So here in Arizona, where we all are right now, you're allowed to have 10 residents in the home. So there are upscale luxury homes, maybe a 6 bedroom, 5 bath that you've converted to become a 10 bedroom, 10 bath. And there's 10 seniors living in the home, 24-hour-a-day care. But the margins are amazing because average rates to live in those homes is $5,500 per person per month.
Yeah.
So you have a much higher income coming in every month. Your expenses are high because it takes a lot to run it. We don't run the day to day. We don't do,
So you only own the real estate then?
the real estate. Yep,
Got it.
exactly. Own the real estate. We hire the licensed administrator who's kind of like a property manager in
Yeah.
the real estate world. So they, do the hiring and the firing of the caregivers. They do the marketing to get the new residents. They, deal with state inspections and different things of that nature. So you're hiring that key person who's basically going to run all the day-to-day for you. And then you just own the real estate and own and operate the business, but you're not like hands-on in it.
Yeah, I completely understand. Now, how do you go about finding, like deciding, okay, is there a specific area of a city and what amenities need to be there in order for you to say, okay, this is an area or a pocket within the city where I'm going to focus and I'm going to try to go and find and what kind of home are you looking for,
Great question. So you want to target the adult children of the person who's moving into the home. So if the senior moving into the home is like 85 plus, their kids are probably in their 50s to 70s. So
Okay.
that's who you're looking for, that affluent 50 to 70-year-old. And wherever they live, eat, work, sleep, play is where you want to be, because they don't want to drive 45 minutes down the road to a different part of town just because it's cheaper. They want to drive 5 minutes on their way home from work because they want to believe they're going to come visit all the time, every week, every day. So the closer to them, the better.
Makes complete sense, because I was thinking of, the actual elderly person that is going to need, but yeah, for some of them, I mean, they probably are not even driving at some point, and so, yeah, they're mostly there, and it's the family, the one that is coming, to come and visit them and see them and spend time with them. So makes absolutely complete sense. Are you looking for a home that originally has, like you said, 5 bedrooms that you could extend? Or are you looking for a home that has, that sits in a bigger tract of land in order for you to, improve upon it or make it bigger? How does that go? How do you go about it, basically?
Yeah, you definitely want something that, my kind of rule of thumb is 300 to 500 square feet per resident. So with 10 residents, minimum 3,000 square feet, upwards of 5,000 would be very comfortable. You could do that with a home that already exists, right? We could go find a 4,000 or 5,000 square foot home on the market, but it's probably not going to be a 10-10. So we're going to have to do some renovation, some conversion to make it become that or as close to that as possible. So in certain states where you're allowed to have more than 10, maybe 12, 14, or 16, a custom build from the ground up is an awesome way to go about this. In other states where it's less than 10, buying a single family and converting to become is a great way. You can also lease a home to use for this, or buy an existing REL business. You're buying the real estate, buying the business, up and running, cash flowing day one. So there's kind of different ways to go about it, but you are looking for a larger footprint to begin with.
Do you specialize in one way or the other, the ground up construction or the existing one? What do you do?
We show people all 4 ways to do this because we coach people all across the country to do it. Mine, we have purchased an existing and we've converted 2 single families to become. And then I've also ended up leasing out one of mine. So I didn't lease it, but I'm leasing it out. So kind of done 3 of the 4 ways. I haven't done a ground up build yet, but a lot of our students have. And it's been really fun to help them through that process.
Amazing. Yeah. I was telling Sophia, it's a very lucrative, for sure. You talked about the $5,500, per person. What are some of the expenses? I always think about the expense, the liability with, with caring with someone's
what I was
loved
thinking.
one, insurances. Like, what are your typical margins? Like, yes, you have $5,500 per person, but truly of those $5,500, how much do you actually get to net?
So on an
Average.
average, yeah, on an average home that's bringing that type of income in, you have to pay for the staff. The caregivers are going to be your biggest expense. 40% of your expenses is going to go to staffing.
Yeah.
The rest of the things are utilities, activities, food, cable, internet, just regular things that we all have in our own home.
Yeah.
Liability insurance is about $2 to $3 per resident per day. So $900 a month, it's a line item.
Okay.
Definitely something you want and need, but
Yeah.
nothing that's going to break the bank. So
Okay.
all in on an average home, probably about $35,000 a month is going towards your expenses. And
Okay.
mortgages these days are going to be pricey on a large home like that. So call it $10,000. That's still leaving you as the owner operator $10,000 a month as your take home income.
Yeah. Okay. So that I understand a little bit better. So that's why the minimum of at least 10 makes sense. You need a little bit of economies of scale in order to make the numbers work. Yeah.
10 is great. In some states where you're only allowed to have 6, you do need to do it in a higher end area because, the average rate of 5,500, that's Arizona's average.
Yeah.
That's not California or Washington, D.C. Their averages out there are $9,500 per person. So even though they can only have 6 residents, the numbers work out very similarly as well.
Yeah. Now, I know that, you mentioned you had to take over, dad's businesses. And I mean, you got started in all things entrepreneurship at a very young age is what I'm guessing. And hence the young boss
Yeah.
podcast name. What are some of the advantages? Sophia's 16 years old. She's just getting started, in the world of entrepreneurship. She knows how to fundraise. And, she's fundraised last year for a nonprofit over $200,000, with 2 other friends where they recruited 20 or 30, other 16-year-olds to come and help them, raise funds for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society. And I'm like, Sophia, that exact same skill of recruiting a team, of how you went about presentations, of being strategic, in terms of like who on that list, of potential donors you would contact for a $10,000, donation versus a $500 donation. All of those things go into, when you're raising capital for real estate. And I always said to her, in the beginning, she was a little hesitant, will we be able to hit our goal? Their goal was originally 150,000. And they actually surpassed it by $50,000.
Amazing.
And I was telling her that anyone, I think, will respect the hustle for a teenager that is doing and working for something, as honorable as a nonprofit. And even if it wasn't a nonprofit, you're trying to create and bring value into the marketplace and create solutions in the marketplace that will always be very well received.
Yeah.
But what are some of the other advantages that you have seen, of being a young person in business, or disadvantages, and how have you overcome those?
Yeah, we talk about that all the time on the Young Boss podcast because I do think that there are pros and cons to being young in business. One of the biggest pros that I often see is when I enter a room that's a mastermind or a networking event. First of all, being a woman is already like a pro, right? I think it is. Other women will take it as, oh, it's a negative. It's all men here. It's a pro. You just stood out amongst everybody else. Everyone wants to talk to you. You're different. Use your difference to be your strength. The second thing, being young. If someone it was the same newness level of you, the same level of green, and they walked in, but they were 60 years old, the room of 60-year-old men, they don't want to help another 60-year-old newbie man. He asked them to coffee and they're going to say, maybe next week. Maybe later. I'll see if I can squeeze it in. When you walk in, and you're young and you're a female and you say, "Can I take you to coffee? I want to learn about your business strategy." They are thrilled to help you. They want to give you those skills, those connections, those different things. And so I think it is such an advantage when it comes to networking, leveling up, and having those relationships, because use those things that make you different. When you go to a group that's young entrepreneurs or all young people, everyone's at the same playing field. No one can really help each other rise up. But when you are the dumbest, the youngest, the whatever person in the room, everyone is willing to help you. And naturally, you'll level up by being in that room. So I think that is such an advantage. I think the disadvantage is that you're green, you're new. You don't always know where to go or what to do or what to say. And I've been having a lot of conversations with young bosses where they've said, my reactiveness is something that I've realized was a weakness, and I've tried to like hone that in. And I think the emotions that you have when you're young are very different when you're 50, 60 years old in business and you've been through the gambit. When you're young, something pisses you off and you're like, and it can't be like that. And so you learn those things over time. So I think the disadvantage can just be being green and not knowing the perfect thing to say at every moment. But I also think if you don't have those, you'll never become that. So I'd rather have an explosion from a 20-year-old who I'm working with than an explosion from a 70-year-old. Like, that's not acceptable. Hone it in, buddy. But when you're young, it's like, okay, let me work with this. This is a learning lesson. This is a moment. Like, let's take time to dig in. So advantages and disadvantages. But to me, there's no better time than to start right now and use what you have and just do what you can.
Yeah, and it comes with the territory, challenges, and I always tell her, you're slowly going to expand your capacity. I am a firm believer that the level of your wealth and the income and the service and the impact that you can bring, in the marketplace is 100% correlated in proportion to your ability to solve problems. You will have a bigger business because you've been able to solve bigger problems, in the community, in the society, and and so on and so forth. And that takes time, and you got to start somewhere. I remember, my first 7-figure, year from land flipping. I was 27 years old, and some of the things that I struggled back then, when we started looking into other asset classes outside of land, which was my domain of expertise, was perhaps lenders not taking you as seriously. But when they see that you got your numbers down, when they see that you have a true understanding of what you're talking and your vision for a property and so on and so forth, that immediately like dissipated. It was like an initial, I think a second judgment, in a fraction of a second, that happens when somebody, sees you, or you walk into a room and you come across as very young, but then you start opening your mouth and getting into the detail of, whatever it is that you're having that conversation about. And age kind of like disappears, it falls to the background, it has been at least my experience,
Yeah.
So, and I'm pretty sure that for you, it has been the same.
Yes, I agree. I think you've got to use the advantages more than anticipate the disadvantage. Anticipate that they're going to look at you like you're young and that you don't know what you're doing. And as soon as you know that that's going to be the reaction, it becomes way less scary. It becomes way less even a topic that you're thinking about. It's just like, oh yeah. And then you prove it. Just like you're saying, the only thing you can do is prove that you are worthy, prove that you know what you're talking about. And as soon as you do that and you show your body of work, no matter how small it is, that is what gets people to believe in you, and that confidence changes everything.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know that you said you're in assisted living, but you also run 7 other companies. Like, what else do you do, Isabel?
Yeah, mostly all in the assisted living realm.
Okay,
So
okay.
we run the only national association that represents all 30,000 group homes across the country.
Oh, wow.
RAL National Association. We run RAL Academy, which is the nation's leading educator to show people how to own and operate these care homes. I've got a podcast with that, Assisted Living Network. We have a national convention that we host every year. This year, Kim Kiyosaki and Ed Milet are coming. So it's the only convention for care home owners. There's a lot of events for the big box owners, but nothing for the smaller care home owners. So we kind of corner the market on that. We have a recovery housing academy, Pitch Masters Academy, the Young Boss podcast. I think I'm naming them all. I think that's it. And then just running the 3 care homes. So yeah, it's a lot.
It is a lot. It's exciting. Now, when you were starting out, and how have the people that you hung out with change over time? Because you did mention a little bit about masterminds and going into groups where, people are going to be older, but how did you deal with, for example, what Sophia is dealing at school, where she's like, oh, none of the people I hang out with, or very few, are really interested in anything entrepreneurial,
Yes, it does change over time. And I think that having those really uncomfortable and awkward conversations with people, they suck. Like it sucks when you realize you've outgrown a friend and that they can't keep up with you in the same way that you want because like they're your friend,
It's almost like an unexpected challenge that
Yeah.
comes as a result of sometimes success, or you know what I mean? It's
Yes.
things that you'd never think would happen.
I really genuinely believe that everybody is like a little seed, and some seeds are planted in rocks and they'll never grow, and other seeds are planted in soil. And if you feel like you're in a pile of rocks, you have to move. You have to go find your soil, find the group that's going to help you grow, that's going to help you become the flower or the plant or whatever you are, right? Because I think it's so environment is everything. If you are not around people who inspire you, who motivate you, who get you, it's the wrong people to be around. And that stinks to lose some people. Like so I had a girlfriend who we were very close for years and years. And I noticed I started doing a gut check. Every time I get off the phone with her, I didn't feel positive. I didn't feel better. I felt like negative and worse. And I was like, this isn't right. And for years we had a beautiful relationship, but something just shifted and changed. And as soon as I realized, like, oh, this is every time I'm talking to her, I just started slowly answering the phone less and less and less. And it doesn't always need to be this huge, like, blow up breakup where it's like, you're not good for me. It's like you can just slowly start to kind of step away and respect what it was, and also say, it's not going to help me get where I'm going. So I'm good on that. Thank you, but I'm over here now.
Thank you so much for that. I think, isn't that helpful,
I
Sophia?
needed to hear that.
She needed to hear that. Yeah.
It's hard. It's so hard.
It is. It's not an easy thing navigating, that. Now, if you were, looking at or spending time with yourself when you were 16 years old,
Yeah.
what is the biggest piece of advice that you would go back now with things that you know now, that you would go back and try to reason yourself with, or give advice about,
I think I had no idea what was to come in life. Like I don't even think if someone asked me what my dream job was, I'd be like to be a mom and have kids, like and to be a wife. Like I didn't even care necessarily about my career. I didn't think that that was going to be something that was so important and valuable to me until post college, when I had my first W-2 job and I was like, I'm not using my brain. I feel so bored and dead inside. And I was like, I need to do something that I'm challenged. I need to do something where I'm growing and I'm learning and I'm in an environment that's exciting to me every day. And that's when the entrepreneurship journey took off. But I think at 16, I would have just my best advice to myself would be think bigger. Like you are worthy of everything and you can go so much farther than your brain can imagine right now. You can only see so much, but there is so much more to come, and our world is ever changing. So stay vigilant and pivot, pivot, pivot. Just like become a master of pivoting, because things, even strategies that worked 10, 15 years ago, they don't work today. And in another 10, 15 years, they're not going to work. So don't get stuck in one thing. Master whatever you can, but always continue learning and just keep growing, and don't be afraid, because there's so much out there to accomplish and to do.
That is fantastic piece of advice, especially because, the name of the podcast is the process of becoming wealthy. And it's
Yeah.
not just the what sits in the bank account that you just described. It's other intangibles, that things that you learn, skill sets, capabilities that really not just enrich your knowledge base, but give you confidence to go out there again and bring value to the marketplace, bring solutions to problems. And I think if you're always curious about, I tell her about solving, big problems, in whatever it is industry that you're in, you'll always be a transformer. You'll always, create an incredible level of impact. Sometimes beyond what you thought is possible. So this thinking big ideas is so important. I like to think of, wealth on the context of I'm here to experience the beauty and experience of wealth over a lifetime. And with that lifetime context comes the necessity to have to pivot, sometimes,
Yep.
and sometimes anticipating those pivots versus being forced by being against the wall to make the pivots, but
Yeah.
anticipating those. So staying curious for sure is what I tell her. Now, what does wealth mean to you, Isabel? And I don't know if it's perhaps from some early money lessons in your family, from your parents, but what does wealth mean to you?
I feel like it's not a dollar amount. And I distinctly remember, like, there must have been some conversation going on at school when I was young where everyone was talking about how much their parents made, right? And I went home and I asked my dad, how much money do you make? And he said, don't ever ask me that. And I was like, what? Why? He's like, because I don't want you running around going telling your friends, how much money and making people feel bad. Like, no, no, no. He said, we're blessed. That's all you need to know. You're blessed. And I was like, okay. But I think when I think of wealth, I don't think of money. And maybe that was ingrained in me young, but I think of it as life. Like, does your family, like, do you feel the love when you're around them? Do you feel wealthy when it comes to your family? Do you feel wealthy when it comes to your friends? Like, when I leave interactions with my friends, I'm like, oh, I'm just juiced up. Like, I love them. I love life. I'm just happy and fulfilled. And I think it's like having health and, all of these different things. I understand it takes money to be able to ease the worries. So yes, there is some sort of, money component to this where you need to have X amount of dollars to feel confident and comfortable to spend that time with your family, to spend that time with your friends, to go on that vacation. But it's not a specific amount, because I have friends who are chosen homeless, right? They live in a van and they travel the world, and they're the wealthiest people I know, right?
Yeah.
Because they're so filled up, like to dripping out of them. They're full of life. And I know other people who are multi millionaires, and they're the poorest people I know, because they have no joy, no love, nothing good is coming out of them. And that's sad. So I don't know what the number is, but I just know it's a feeling in your heart, and it's the fulfillment of life. That to me is being wealthy.
Thank you. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. So, Sophia, any other question that you might have for Isabel?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I think we covered our bases here. One last question. If somebody wanted to, get a hold of you, learn about assisted living and this asset class in general. I know you mentioned a few names here and there, and I'm sure we're going to have those on the show, show notes. But is there a way where people can connect with you? Any place where you would like to send them?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at the Isabelle Guarino, and we're also on Instagram at RAL Academy. So if you want to learn more about assisted living, check us out there.
Well, thank you so much, Isabel, for being here with us today. I'm very grateful for you basically shedding a little bit of light on this new asset class for Sophia, and just your perspective, your experiences as a young entrepreneur. Leading a life of I would say of faith, of conviction, of wanting to serve others, and because I think when you decide to not just invest in real estate, but teach others how to do it, there's got to be, this level of servant leadership and heart that, that is there present. And so thank you so much for being here with us. And to all our listeners, thank you so much for, letting us coming to your home, coming to your headspace every single week with another episode, and looking forward to being with you guys on another episode of Becoming Wealthy. Thank you so very much.